awareness.
Oh, Frank, that is really good news.
You know,
I heard you've got a couple new businesses coming. I keep up. I hear what's happening.
well, we're hoping so. But yeah, but you know the challenges, right?
I know. And it's the same in every town. I had someone called me today and said, Portland has had nothing new. I said, we just opened 3 new businesses in the middle of a pandemic, and I've got a major construction project going on. What are you talking about? We opened a Middlesex Hospital physical therapy office here in town. Oh, well, that doesn't count. Okay. Okay, I filled 8,000 square feet, and I'm in the process of building a brand new Dairy Queen, and we put in a brand new golf performance center and moved the National Performance Institute here, and they're like, no, none of those count. I said, okay. Not much you can do.
Nope. No.
So,
Dairy Queen going.
On the opposite corner of where it is now, but we're getting a drive-through, which for me is probably the most dangerous thing, because that means ice cream in your jammies. The peanut butter parfait at 10 o'clock on a Saturday night,
So Jeremy, I think you said that you have a quorum of East Hampton members?
Yes, everybody from our meeting.
Yeah, the whole group is here.
Yeah, so you might as well start.
So we have Terry Grady, Sam.
Oh, great.
Who is a member of our commission, and Chantel Foster, and then John Herring is on, and John is our new zoning enforcement officer.
Great. Well, why don't we just, if we're ready to start, we could just go around and do some introductions, because we sort of started down that road. I'm Sam Gold. I'm the executive director of RiverCOG.
Torrance Downs, deputy director.
Megan Juflis, senior planner with RiverCOG.
Frank D. Felice, chair of the Regional Planning Commission.
I guess I'll go next. Mary Dickerson. I'm the economic development coordinator, planner, and interim planning and land use administrator for the town of Portland.
And I'm John Herring. I'm the new zoning enforcement officer in Portland.
Okay, and keeping it on the Portland, I'm Chantel Foster. I'm on the P&Z Commission, and I just want to say, Mary, Carolyn, I have Carolyn on the phone. She can't get in.
She could call in.
Well, she's trying. Anyway, that's it. Go ahead, Terry.
Terry Grady with the Portland Planning and Zoning.
Hey, I'm Jeremy DeCarly, town planner for East Hampton, RiverCOG alum.
Great picture, Jeremy.
Ray Zatorsky on Planning and Zoning East Hampton.
So you heard that, right?
Kevin Core.
From
Oh, go ahead, Jim.
East Hampton, Planning and Zoning.
Kevin Core, East Hampton Planning and Zoning, Vice Chair.
Angelos Tamaro, Planning and Zoning.
I'm Mike Kowalczyk, Planning and Zoning alternate and RPC member for East Hampton.
I'm Humphrey Tyler. I'm from Lyme, and I'm Lyme's alternate RPC member. I'm just here to hear about what your concerns are up there in Portland and East Hampton.
All right. I think everyone's introduced.
Yeah, that's it. Roland Rux.
Roland Rux, Hampton Planning and Zoning Commission.
Hi, Roland.
Hello.
All right.
That should do it.
All right. With that, I'm going to turn over to Megan Juflis, and she's going to, I assume, kick off the presentation. So I will mute myself, and you'll hear a little bit more from me later during our discussion.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us. Thank you also to the East Hampton and Portland Planning and Zoning Commissions for allowing us this time to speak with you this evening. As I mentioned, my name is Megan Juflis, and I'm a senior planner with the Lower Connecticut River Valley Council of Governments, or RiverCOG. Joining me in giving this presentation is RiverCOG's Deputy Director, Torrance Downs. Or maybe Sam, if we can convince him. At this time, I'd like to recognize your RPC member, Mike Kowalczyk. Mike, if you wanted to say a few words at all about the plan, I'd like to give you that opportunity right now.
I don't have much to add. We went through our town plan a couple of years ago, and we're now working on building a unified region for a unified plan for the whole region. Okay.
Thank you. I'd also like to recognize the RPC Chair, Frank DeFelice. Frank, if you'd like to say a few words.
Thank you very much for that introduction, Megan. As Megan mentioned, my name's Frank DeFelice, and for the past 5 years, I've had the pleasure of serving as the chair of the Regional Planning Committee for the 17-town region, the RiverCOG region. And on behalf of the more than 24 representatives that serve on the RPC, I want to express our appreciation to you for taking time out of your schedules to attend this special presentation, which will introduce you to the importance of and process for creating the new Regional Plan of Conservation and Development. And although each of our 17 municipalities surely possess attributes that make them unique, it's really important for us to think regionally. And that's because each of our 17 municipalities are and will continue to be reliant upon and impacted by their neighboring municipalities. Our appeal to the outside world depends greatly on these cohesive relationships, and therefore there's much to be gained by our working in common. As the RPC embarks on this next Regional Plan of Conservation and Development, the first for our new region, we'll be paying particular attention to balancing conservation with development. And indeed, this balance is critical for the long-term success of the plan. The RPC also recognizes that the plan must consider the challenges and impacts of the rapidly changing world we now live in. To this end, the RPC hopes to incorporate options that will assist member municipalities in navigating these challenges and in addressing the issues that we have in common. And following this presentation, the RPC members and myself are hopeful that you will participate in the plan's development actively, sharing your vision, identifying important issues, critiquing our work, and identifying the goals that will define and improve our region over the next 10 years and beyond. And we look forward to seeing you at our future events. And with that, I'd like to say thank you to Megan for the introduction, and I'll turn it back to her. And I must let you know, I regret that I do have a planning and zoning meeting for the town of Durham, which I chair also, and I'll have to join that shortly. So I may be departing early, but I appreciate the opportunity to speak tonight and for you all in attendance. Megan, back to you.
Thanks, Frank.
Thank you.
So we'd like to begin with a brief presentation, followed by an open discussion based on the 5 questions that were circulated prior to the meeting. We expect this presentation to last approximately 1 hour. So with that, let's begin. Why are we here? As a reminder, RiverCOG, the Regional Planning Committee, or RPC, and our consultant, Fitzgerald and Halliday, are working on the first Regional Plan of Conservation and Development, RPOCD, for the Lower Connecticut River Valley region. On June 29th and July 7th, we held region-wide introductory presentations that offered a primer on RiverCOG, the RPC, and the RPOCD. We'll begin tonight's presentation with a brief recap of key takeaways from the introductory presentation, which is also available on the project website, rivercogregionalplan.org. We'll then spend a few minutes explaining what we mean by the region and why it is that we think regionally. The purpose of this discussion is to focus our perspective. Although we're here to learn about your town's issues and goals, it's important to keep in mind that we're creating a regional plan. So our focus should be on how your town's issues and goals fit into the region as a whole. We'll highlight some examples of this by showcasing a few goals from your POCD and comparing them to goals of other towns across the region. Then we'll turn the rest of this meeting over to you to discuss your responses to those 5 questions. At the introductory presentation, we set out to answer a few key questions, which I'll briefly recap. Why are we here? As I mentioned at the outset, we are creating the Regional Plan of Conservation and Development. What is RiverCOG? The regional planning organization for the Lower Connecticut River Valley. What is the RPC? The RPC is made up of appointed representatives from each of our 17 municipalities and has been tasked to oversee the creation of the RPOCD. And what is the RPOCD? It's a visionary policy document that guides land use patterns in the region over the next 10 years. Also at the introductory presentation, we answered the question of why we think regionally. Because thinking as a region can help our municipalities solve common problems and achieve common goals. But what do we mean by region? Specifically, we're talking about the Lower Connecticut River Valley, which is made up of 17 municipalities: Chester, Clinton, Cromwell, Deep River, Durham, East Haddam, East Hampton, Essex, Haddam, Killingworth, Lyme, Middlefield, Middletown, Old Lyme, Old Saybrook, Portland, and Westbrook. Each of these municipalities is unique in character, but their geographic proximity means that certain common conditions will exist among them, and that certain issues and goals will necessarily be shared. In addition, many issues and goals will have impacts that cross municipal boundaries. So what happens in Portland may have impacts that reach East Hampton. The unique character of each municipality also means that each has its own strengths and weaknesses. Our municipalities are interdependent, relying on each other in areas such as housing, jobs, infrastructure, and critical public services. As part of the RPOCD, we will be examining these common issues and goals, as well as the areas where our towns are interdependent, and provide a roadmap for coordination and cooperation. As part of this effort, hearing from you about what matters to your towns is critically important. Although this is the first RPOCD for the Lower Connecticut River Valley region, it's important to reiterate that we are not starting from zero. Our analysis of common issues and goals began with a review of the municipal POCDs for all 17 municipalities. After our review, we compared the POCDs and found that they do, in fact, share a great deal in common. So let's look at some of the goals from East Hampton's POCD. First, and this is my disclaimer, I like to note that these goals were chosen to showcase the breadth of topics covered and were not meant to imply any particular level of importance. 1, interconnect open space into a system of greenways. 2, adopt regulatory incentives to preserve historic resources, such as historic overlay and/or adaptive reuse provisions in the zoning regulations. 3, provide sidewalks throughout the commercial areas, more densely populated areas of the villages and around the lake, with attention given to crosswalks and other safety enhancements. 4, expand options for accessory apartments as rental units. Now let's turn to Portland's POCD. 1, establish an interconnected system of open space in order to create greenway trails and wildlife corridors. 2, to help preserve historic structures, allow for adaptive reuse when and where appropriate. 3, encourage the creation and maintenance of a pedestrian-friendly streetscape. 4, explore ways to diversify Portland's housing portfolio. When we look across the region at other municipal POCDs, these goals were widely shared. All 17 towns had goals related to establishing or linking open space and greenways. 10 towns had goals related to adaptive reuse of historic structures. All 17 towns had goals related to improving bicycle and pedestrian connections. And all 17 towns had goals related to diversifying housing stock. And with that, I would like to turn it over to Torrance to lead the discussion portion.
Okay. Sam, you want me to do it? Okay, I will do it.
Why don't you start off and then I'll help with the facilitation. So go ahead.
Okay, and I'm going to be taking notes while I do it too. Okay, now it's time. We want to hear from all of you. As Megan said, we reviewed all of your plans and we've made regional comparisons based on data and our own professional experience, but you guys live in Portland and East Hampton, and you're the ones with the intimate understanding of how your towns function, what it needs, and what in the town makes it special. Before we turn to the 5 questions, just a couple of items. We're going to try to spend about 10 minutes on each of these questions, but you know, if we get some lively discussion, it'll go as long as it takes. We want to hear what you have to say. Jeremy, are you going to be calling on folks, or will it be Ray?
No, I mean, I think we'll just, you know, there's not very many people in here, so I think anybody that wants to talk, just kind of jump in. If it starts to get crazy, then we'll figure it out. But
Okay, great. Yeah. So if you have anything, just speak right up. You know, if we have time at the end, as Megan said, we're going to try to spend about an hour, but if we have time at the end, we'll come back and visit some questions if you have anything additional to say. And we know that these are big topics to be discussed in 10 minutes or so. And so if you have any additional thoughts, you know, after we finish this meeting, we welcome you and actually hope that you will email us with any of those additional thoughts. You can email Megan at mjuflis@rivercog.org. These email addresses will be posted at the end. And you can email your RPC members, you know, Mike, and those email addresses will be up at the end too. So, so let's go for question number 1 here. This is the nice big broad one. What would be your vision for the Lower Connecticut River Valley? What are your thoughts about vision for the region as a whole?
When you say vision, I'm sorry, this is Chantel Foster, maybe. I don't know. Am I unmuted?
Yes,
you are.
Yeah.
yeah, you have, everybody has the ability to speak. You just have to unmute yourselves. That's
Right.
all.
Okay. But when you say what's the vision for all of the 17 towns, is that what the question is?
Yeah. Yeah. What would you think, you know, collectively, all 17 towns, like what position do they hold in the state? What opportunity does the region provide to the state? What's your vision? What should it be?
So if you were traveling somewhere around the world and you were trying to explain, you know, ideally, what is this place all about? This part of the world, to someone who's never been here, what would you want to say to them? What would you want to be true about this place? And how would you describe it?
Well, I think the Connecticut River is just an overwhelming feature of this particular area that we're talking about. So, I mean, I don't know what kind of a vision that is, but certainly the Connecticut River is just a very dominant feature in our whole area. And being able to appreciate that, and I don't know if the word capitalize on it is the right word, but I think just being able to appreciate it as a resource is very important.
Okay, that's good.
This is Mary. So going to what Chantel is really talking about, there is a great example which was done in Ireland. So they started out in Carney, Donegal, and went down around through Kerry and Cork, and it's called the Wild Atlantic Way. And what they did was they really economically and land use wise developed an attraction to the Atlantic Ocean. I think we can do the same to the Connecticut River, and everything could tie to that. So if we bring an attraction to the Connecticut River and what it adds to the area, then everything becomes easy. Environmental stewardship becomes easy because everyone understands the focal point. Development with the river in mind becomes easy because everyone understands the focal point. So I think it's the connectivity between our towns is what the river offers to us. There's a few that in the county that don't have that connectivity, but then that branches out into other things. So you get to a town like Killingworth and they have the farms, and so does Durham. And so I think we can take commonalities, and I think we can build off them and bring awareness that's going to help us to develop a countywide plan and get everyone to buy into it.
Good. Thank you, Mary.
Yeah, I would agree. This is Jeremy. I'll jump in too. And of course, I know I'm staff, but I've also spent my entire life in the region. I live on the western side over here in Hampton. I work for East Hampton. I worked for the COG. Certainly, the river is sort of the ribbon that binds us. I think that's undeniable. And I think Mary made some really good points. I think that is a huge focal point. But I also think there are things, and I've had friends from other parts of the country that have come here and remarked about the fact that we kind of have a little bit of everything. We certainly have lots of outdoor activities. We have great state parks. We've got a couple of different state forests that are here. We've got Gillette Castle. We have some unique assets like the steam train. We've got the Goodspeed Opera House, and then I think Middletown is sort of that kind of really is a great spot for kind of congregating. We have a great main street in Middletown, lots of different restaurants, lots of different places to go. You got a movie theater, you got a lot of stuff to do there. So we have a little bit of everything, and I think the vision. For me, the vision for the region is to kind of continue to grow that sort of little bit of everything. We want to leave the rural areas rural, and we want to promote those areas. But the connectivity to Middletown, I think, is key, and to the river, I think, is also key.
Thanks, Jeremy.
This is John Herring, and I guess I'd like to tag on that and sort of circle back to one of the initial comments about diversity, and if someone were coming in from somewhere else. I guess to me, one of the issues is essentially diversity. I do, of course, see the river as essentially the tie that binds, the connecting factor. But one of the things about the region is the diversity, and I mean that not simply in terms of scenic thing, whether you're talking farmland or small urban areas or riverine systems or fully natural systems versus pastoral or whatever, but also the diversity in terms of the economics, the population composition, urban, rural, various ethnicities, so forth. And I think in some sense that one of the things to keep in mind is, while you have using, say, the river as an organizing principle, maintain an appreciation for and support for diversity in all these different areas, economic, wealth, the urban, rural, everything else. I think that the diversity is one of the things. It's nice, and for an outsider, it's often unusual to find a relatively small region that is traversable fairly readily, which offers so many different things. And I think that's important. That's something that could be capitalized on.
Thanks, John. That's a good one. Anybody else? Shall we move on to the second question? We can come back if anybody has any more thoughts on that vision question, but those were good answers. What do you see as your town's role in the region? Where does Portland fit into the 17-town region or East Hampton?
What do you provide to the larger area around you, beyond your town boundaries?
Well, this is Chantel Foster. I mean, I see our town compared to the other 17 towns or 16 towns. I guess I see ours as more rural, more agrarian, and more, state foresty.
And this is Mary Dickerson. I really see us as kind of a recreation hub. So we have 3 golf courses. We have the new Golf Performance Center. We have 7 marinas. We have the Brownstone Exploration and Discovery Park, which is bringing in 100,000 visitors in a non-COVID year. We have gateway to the Massachusetts State Forest, which is almost 9,000 acres. We have the airline trail, which hopefully we will be connecting to East Hampton. So I think our role is really year-round almost recreation. We found that the airline trail is being used in the winter just as much as it is some other times of the year. So if I had to say a niche as to what we are, I think that's sort of where we fit economically.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you, Mary.
I think I'll jump in on East Hampton, and maybe some of my commission members will follow along. I'm hoping somebody will say something here, but I would say East Hampton's role. I've always thought of East Hampton as sort of a gateway to the east. We're sort of the last big town as you run along 66. We're sort of the last big town until before you really get into the quiet corner of the state. And that really hit home with me not too long ago. I was driving back from Boston. I came down route, whatever that is over there, 391 or 395 rather. And then I came across the state on 66, and East Hampton was really the first place that you kind of hit on that route. And so we're sort of the gateway to the east. We do have a couple of major trailheads for the airline trail. And of course, like Mary said, we're working on that connection. But a lot of people do come to East Hampton to access the airline trail, which of course runs to the east. We also have Lake Pocatapog, which is a major draw, 512-acre lake. That's a major draw. And we're also, we're Belltown. We have a big manufacturing past. We still, to this day, are the only place in the country making bells. And we have American Distilling as well, which is the only manufacturer of witch hazel right here in East Hampton. So, we're sort of we got a little bit of everything. We're sort of like the region in that we have a little bit of everything. We have a little downtown, which has quite a few businesses and has a little bit of diversity. We've got trails, we've got forests. So I think we're kind of almost like a microcosm of the region, if you will.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, Jeremy, microcosm of the region. Anybody else, East Hampton?
I'll add that I think that, Jeremy, in light of what we've accomplished this year with the lake remediation, the plan, to control runoff and the science that's behind what's going on right now at the lake, as well as all the work that you've done, which everybody is just obviously so appreciative for, with trying to update our regulations to better protect what a lot of people in town refer to as our most important asset, although we haven't treated it that way, it seems, in the past 50 years. I think that's important. I think that hopefully we're viewed as, a good partner, a good role model, a good leader in the case of protecting our natural resources, our environment, but also just trying to make sure that, we allow development that's smart and beneficial to the economy in the town.
Thanks. Back to Portland. Anybody in Portland?
Terry Grady. I don't really have Chantel and Mary really touched on just about everything, but other than the fact that we have a strong bedroom community of being a suburb of the entire area. A lot of people really gravitate to Portland for the quietness of it, other than 66 at coming and going. It's a quiet, gentle town that people appreciate, with quality schools and just a nice way of life. And people always keep in mind that 66 is the one anomaly, but other than that, they're happy to keep it that way.
Thanks, Kerry.
I'm going to jump back in and piggyback a little bit on something Angela said about East Hampton. And it's something I think that speaks to a larger thing that we've got going on throughout the state and really the Northeast. Our population is aging, but what I've noticed is that East Hampton has managed to keep housing costs somewhat down, and we've managed to actually keep a fair number of younger residents in our town, and our schools have benefited in the sense that we really have not seen much of a decline in school population. So many of the schools in the region have seen a fairly sizable decline over the last 10, 15 years, and we've stayed pretty stable. And I think that's partly because we have a And we have a lot of single families, just like any of the other towns. We have a lot of single family housing stock, but we do have some diversity in that. We've got a lot of smaller units around the lake that tend to be more affordable in nature. They don't meet the 830G affordability statute, certainly, but they are more affordable and they attract younger couples that are looking to start out their families, and those families just sort of stay in East Hampton. They might grow to a bigger house in town, but that is something I think that we have kind of filled that role differently than a lot of other towns. You know, I live over in Hampton, and I don't see that same situation over here because, you know, the affordability in East Hampton is just a little bit different. We've done some things. We recently updated our regulations to allow for accessory dwelling units, so that, you know, hopefully we'll see that as a little bit of a change. And we do have the sewer system as well, which has helped some of that. So I think that's a good point that I wanted to make.
Hey, Jeremy, are a lot of the houses around the lake year-round?
The vast majority of them at this point are. You know, they started out as cottages, but when the sewer system was put in the early 80s, that really changed the game. And I would say the vast majority of those houses have been either rebuilt or converted to year-round houses. There's very few seasonal cottages at this point.
Anybody else?
Yes, this is Mike from East Hampton.
Mike?
Yep. I see East Hampton as a bit of a regional commercial hub, maybe a minor one. I know several years ago, I had a lot of friends who lived in Moodus, and they'd be making weekly or even sometimes daily trips up to East Hampton to use the pharmacy or go to Stop and Shop or a gas station. So there are a lot of small towns that depend on the services in East Hampton.
Okay, Mike. Any other thoughts before we go to number 3? Okay, question number 3. What are the challenges each of your towns is facing that would be easier to address working regionally or with neighboring towns?
And we already know that Portland and East Hampton have a history of working together. You know, this shared meeting, of course. But what are the things that you see that are really concerning to you about your town that needs a larger response that's coordinated with your neighbors?
This is Mary, and I think regionally our transportation options are lacking. And I know this isn't a transportation plan, but we really in Portland, we have a flag stop system, and we cannot have students from Portland who do not drive be able to rely on that to get them to Middlesex Community College or to get them to medical appointments. And I think a regional transportation solution is probably the only way out of that. I think the other thing is spiraling costs. If we can find ways to regionalize some services or products that the town needs to either provide or support services that we need to purchase, if we can have a way to do that regionally, I think it's going to help really mitigate some of these tax increases that are out of the hands of the towns. In Portland's case, the Board of Education increases that are mandated, you're just trying to keep up, and we keep cutting at the town government level, and that's just not sustainable to do. So I think a lot of them end up being financial, but I think a regional transportation system would be a big help in getting people to move throughout our region and not just stay within their communities.
No, that's good, Mary. That's absolutely appropriate.
We are wrapping up a regional transportation transit study, actually, that has some suggestions for changes and improvements to the bus route that serves Portland and East Hampton, making it more regular. So that is something we are aware of the issue there.
This is Roland Rux from East Hampton, Town of Planning and Zoning Commission. One of the greatest challenges facing East Hampton is the lack of potable water. And on the level of town council, I know there's been talks between Portland and East Hampton. This is an area that is going to pose a serious discussion amongst your town and our town, I know that there's been talks on that level. That's one challenge that faces East Hampton as well as Portland for a cost of water, a flexible system for water around our lake and around our town center. And this is something that is being looked at by our town council, but will be a challenge for maybe even Portland as well. The second issue that we have about 22% of our town population that's over 60 years old, and a growing aging population of people who do not have transportation to get to doctor's office visits. And working with the Senior Citizen Center here in town, we petitioned the town government to provide better transportation for our seniors who do not have the ability to get from East Hampton to Marlborough for just basic doctor visits and to Moodus doctor visit and surrounding towns. This is a joint problem not only for Portland as well as East Hampton. And I think that's going to be an issue coming to probably both towns. We took that up as part of our plan of conservation and development, saying that the town should look at providing those kind of services, and using that document, we gained some foot ground on getting 2 part-time drivers and a person to administrate transportation. So that's something that maybe East Hampton and Portland can jointly look at. I don't know. This is at a higher pay grade than what we all get as members on planning and zoning, which is 0. So thank you for allowing me to speak at least on those 2 issues. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, well, that piggybacks right on what Mary said. That's great. And then the water situation there in Portland,
and Torrance,
East Hampton,
this is Mary.
issue.
If I could add to that water situation, Roland is correct. The big issue for Portland is we have an MDC connection. We have to make the decision, do we want MDC to be the regional supplier? But for MDC's water to go to East Hampton, it would have to utilize our existing town system. And so that system would have to be upgraded. And what happens is then the question becomes, the town of Portland residents have to pay to upgrade the system. So having a regional plan where the state is willing to come in and assist 2 towns working together, it solves that problem of one town having to bear the brunt initially of upgrading a system to benefit another town that then has to do their own upgrades at just a huge cost to the number of users we have. So a regional system with a regional plan would benefit everyone because it would open up that funding both on the state and the federal level.
Yeah, and it gets even further complicated as you get into East Hampton because we have 3 ESAs. So East Hampton has its own ESA, and then Connecticut Water has a portion of our town, and Aquarian has another portion. So water is certainly.
We also have a Connecticut Water supplier as well.
Oh, you do?
So
yeah.
So we do. That Payne Boulevard area is Connecticut Water.
Okay. Yeah, and ours is right. So our downtown area is in East Hampton's ESA, but 66 is split up 3 ways. So it's complicated. And there's the other issue I know that we've run into is the grade issue. We've got wells that we can access down in Oakham Dock, which is 450 feet below our village center. So we've got that problem as well.
Oh, you mean the elevation changes?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Good. Anyone else on that one?
Thank you for those comments. I appreciate it.
Okay, shall we go on to number 4? Okay, let's do number 4. We always love this question. What do we all do well in our region, and what could we do better at?
I'll start. So
Oh,
this,
go ahead.
okay, this is Mary. I think having lived in other regions of the country, we do quality of life extremely well. We have a real distinct focus on our schools, which leads to, I just think, a tight family community. So out of schools grow neighborhoods, and out of neighborhoods grow housing values. And that's something that we do really well. But the cost of living in Connecticut is threatening that for us here. And we are the, I believe, second wealthiest county in Connecticut after Fairfield County. But what we're doing is we're pushing out longstanding families who may not be on the top of the income spectrum, but have deep roots here. And I think what we can do better is offer opportunity for people on all income spectrums to be able to live here and participate. It used to be if you had a manufacturing job, whether it was Pratt & Whitney or one of the other manufacturers, you could have a good life here. Those people are being driven out now by the higher wage earners. And so we're not talking about low-income families. We're talking about middle-income families that are really struggling with water and sewer bills and property taxes and just utility expenses. So I think that's what we can do better, is really focus on making sure the middle class can still afford to stay here.
That's a good one, Mary. Thank you. Anybody else?
I would 100% agree with Mary. I think keeping the middle class and certainly keeping the working class here is extremely important. We've got to keep our region diverse, because otherwise we can't staff positions that we need to be able to staff. I'll take it in a completely different direction. I think what we can do better is market ourselves. And I know that, definitely from a tourism standpoint, and this is something that's been talked about in the past, and I don't know that there's really been any significant movement on it. But I think that our region really should be marketing itself as one single region. As I mentioned before, and I think somebody else, maybe, I forget who it was, maybe John Herring, somebody mentioned that we do have a lot of diversity here in a number of different ways. But when you look at tourism and the amount of dollars that it provides to our region, and then the amount of dollars that it has the potential to provide to our region, I think marketing ourselves in that way is very important as a region. Because as somebody said, you can come here and you can fill up a weekend with all types of different activities really easily. You can get to all of those different places, but you have to know where they are, and you have to know that they're close to each other, and you have to know how to get in between all those different things. So I think marketing ourselves and our strengths is important, and I don't think we do it very well.
That's good. There have been numerous comments in past meetings about the issue of branding our region. A lot of folks talking about that, and it's right along the lines of what you guys are saying, marketing ourselves. In the last meeting, we talked about, for instance, the Berkshires. You say Berkshires, and you know what it is. It encompasses, areas in 2 states and numerous towns. What could we call our valley? But that's something that has been discussed a lot. Anybody else on doing well and could be done better?
Yeah, this is John Herring, and I am well out of my area of expertise here. But one of the things that strikes me is one of the values, one of the aspects of the region which people value is essentially the mix of agrarian, pastoral sort of landscapes and such. So one of the issues seems to me that we could do better would be to try to effectively vertically integrate a little bit, improve the markets for those agricultural products, whether that be through focusing on the tourism industry and apple festivals or whatever, or trying to develop some other ways to support that sector. And that could, I think, become something that becomes a benefit to tourism, also help stabilize some of the land use issues in the region. So again, as we get into something like that, that's well beyond my area of expertise, but other people in this group know it far better than I.
Well, that's we talk about ecotourism and in that case agritourism. Yeah, those are all great points, John.
I'd like to add one thing, just the marvelous resource that we have in the river. Frankly, in the time I've been in Connecticut, I don't know of one event that I would call a regional event. Not something, I've been to Middletown's the cruise down Main Street. I've been to a few things around the state, just different events. And I've held events on waterways elsewhere, back in Michigan, on Cape Cod. And we have just 30 miles of river running from Portland, it might be a little more, from Portland all the way down to Old Saybrook. And any number of different gatherings, events, I don't know, race, but all kinds of possibilities that can go on with a bit of regional cooperation and imagination. But it's just, you talk about marketing the area, that's the thing that binds us. That's the one thing that stands out, that's common to the entire area. And that's why this organization is what it is the river. How about we put something in plan on how to use that?
That's a good point, Terry. And actually, we will have language about that. So that's a good point. Anyone else? All right, shall we move on to question number 5 then? How could this regional plan of conservation and development support your town? We've talked a lot about not wanting this to be a top-down plan, but rather one that has recommendations and policies that will support regionally, of course, all of our towns. How could this regional plan support East Hampton and Portland?
And we know that each of your POCDs has a number of items to address different issues in your towns. And what overarching umbrella sort of recommendations or policies would you want to see in a regional plan to help support you in those policies, or as your towns go after grant money, whether it be from state or federal sources, having a regional plan endorsing your initiatives can be helpful in those endeavors.
Mary, any thoughts on that one?
Well, again, I go back to anything that can be in the plan that supports us being able to draw from other financial resources, I am always in favor of. It's very hard for a town of 9,900 people to be able to finance infrastructure improvements like sewer and water expansion, or put together some type of transportation, public transportation, anything that can help us get state and federal dollars to do that on a regional basis is great with me. We are putting together our plan of conservation and development is on a website along with all our plan documents. So it can be found. It's not up and active, but it should be by the end of the week. And it's just Portland Plan, I believe, .org. There's a link on the community links page of our website. And so what that's going to have is all of the documents that relate to our plan of conservation and development going back more than 20 years. So being able to add not only a history of planning in the town of Portland, but some regional emphasis is always good for us.
Okay. Yeah, that's always a good one, Mary. Anybody else?
And ultimately, when we're done with this plan, and we have our future recommended land use map for the region, we would very much would like these plans to sort of communicate with each other and have not only us identifying things that are important to Portland and East Hampton and making sure those are addressed, but for you to consider incorporating regional recommendations and policies in your future updates to your region, to your POCDs. So.
Okay, if any other thoughts on any of these questions? If not, we can move along.
Yeah, again, John Herring here.
Thanks, John.
One of the issues that I think cuts both ways, but I think needs consideration is, in some respects, recognizing the individuality of each community is critical. In other respects, there are areas where it can be helpful on a regional basis to have some sort of uniformity. And that can, what I'm thinking about off the top of my head are certain zoning things where I've fielded several calls in the past month from people who are looking at to buy property, but they have specific uses in mind, and they're basically shopping different towns and saying, what are your zoning regulations on such and such a topic? And I think that you can err too much on either side of saying that we should be fully uniform. I used to live in the former Soviet Union, and I know whereof I speak when I say that you don't want total uniformity. But at the same time, the patchwork of 17 different communities having things, number one, is frustrating for the potential, in this case, property purchaser. And number two, it means that we're competing with each other. So I think that we need to, it would be helpful to spend some time thinking about where do we want to be to have individual approaches, and where do we want to have more common approaches. I'm sorry if that sounds too namby-pamby and vague, but that's about as far as I've gotten so far.
No, that's a point that's been brought up. You know, how do we deal with the region without losing the individuality of each town? So that's a good one, John.
It is, and I would agree with that, and especially when it comes to people that are calling up and sort of shopping the towns against each other, so to speak, because like John said, you know, I field those calls too. Well, what do your regulations allow? Well, you know, next door in Portland they do this, or down in East Hampton they do that, and for whatever reason they end up somewhere else, and we'd like to have them in East Hampton, but it does create competition, which isn't necessarily healthy. To some extent it is. But I think there are opportunities for sort of standardization of some zoning. And I know that's something we talked a lot about during the 66 corridor study project, because that's a great opportunity to sort of standardize some of those land uses along the corridor. So I think that's a good point. And I think there are ways, you know, there was the Grow Smart project a number of years ago, and I think building upon that is probably a direction that we could head in.
Mm-hmm. Good, thank you, John.
One item is that the big issue in Connecticut when it comes to developing a project or a developer is the lack of predictability when you start that endeavor, and some sort of predictability and conformity of regulations across towns could be helpful in promoting this development in this region. That developers know what the towns want, and then give the towns what they want, as opposed to having it being a long drawn out process. Like one possibility would be something like coming up with a model form-based code, which regulates building envelopes and sort of the dimensions of the building, and allows the developer to sort of figure out a number of the different items, but because of the shape of the building, it sort of dictates what the building can be used for. Those types of codes have been starting to be adopted in parts of Connecticut. It's a lot of work to do a bespoke in every town, but the COG could facilitate something like a model regulation that towns could potentially use.
Yeah, I think that would make a lot of sense, and I think something that the plan could do is make some recommendations for those types of things, whether they be form-based or even just, simplifying simplifying the application process, simplifying the regulations across the board for certain uses. Do restaurants really need to be regulated by a special permit, or should they just be a site plan, and make your site plan regulations strong so that you get the form that you're looking for, you get the site you're looking for, but don't drag the developer through this lengthy process subject to public hearings, where every Tom, Dick, and Harry is going to turn out and complain about light and noise in your commercial zone. So that's one of those things too, that I think the POCD could make those types of recommendations.
Good, thanks, Jeremy. Anything else? Okay, well, we'll move on then, if nobody has anything else. We want to thank you all for your participation in this discussion. All of this input is really valuable for creating this regional plan, and will help us create a comprehensive picture of where we all see the region going in the next 10 years. And as I mentioned, these are all pretty big topics, even for, this hour amount of time. So if any of you have any additional thoughts, or if you're talking to anybody who may have some ideas, email them into Megan. You see her email address right there. Or, if you send them to John Herring or to Jeremy, they can forward those to us. If you have our email addresses, you can forward to us. But definitely, if you have any more thoughts after you leave this meeting, keep them coming, and we'll look at it all and include it all. So, and I guess at this point, Megan, I'll throw it back to you, and you can bring us on home.
Great. Thank you, Torrance. So as Torrance said, we're so grateful for your participation in this process, and we'll be compiling all of your comments with those that we've heard in the other towns to inform our policies, recommendations, and goals in the RPOCD. As we move forward, there are plenty of other ways to get involved. These include visiting the website, rivercogregionalplan.org, signing up for email notifications, and sharing these presentations and outreach materials with others in your community. And they are also welcome to send in responses to those 5 questions. Signing up for notifications means you'll be kept informed of upcoming meetings, project news, and links to documents and presentation videos as they're posted online. You can also reach out to your RPC member. There is a link on the webpage, and I will also show the email address at the end of the presentation. With any thoughts, comments, or concerns. The RPC will be meeting regularly to review drafts of the RPOCD and to direct the regional land use policies in it, and they're here to represent you. So let's review a breakdown of the anticipated timeline. We showed this in the introductory presentation, and it's also available on the project website so you can follow along with the process. We kicked off the project in winter of 2019, and we anticipate completion in spring of 2021. We're still in phase 2 of the process at the municipal meetings, which you can see in the second column, second line. We'll be holding municipal meetings, or I should say now, we have been holding municipal meetings just like this one with each town across the region, beginning in July and through August, and one more outlier in September. Concurrent with this outreach process, our team has been hard at work in creating an existing conditions report for the region. The next step in this process, after we've completed all of the municipal meetings, is to provide a draft of the existing conditions report to the RPC for review. This is an opportunity for you to reach out to your town's RPC member via the link on the project website with your thoughts, comments, or concerns on key issues you see for your towns or the region. Your RPC member can make sure that these items are sufficiently addressed as they review the report and can answer any questions you may have. And with that, I'd like to open it up to any questions, and I will leave this contact information. Portland, you have vacancies on the RPC, so we are accepting volunteers. But the way we have the email addresses set up on the website, I will get copies of the emails that come in, so they won't be going into a void. We will receive them and we will answer your questions. So thank you for listening to our presentation, for joining us this evening, and any questions?
And I'll just add that this is a beginning of a conversation. We have been working on that existing conditions report, but really these conversations with each one of our planning and zoning commissions is essential for us in shaping what this plan will be. And as we do more public outreach over the course of the project, we hope you can be involved, and I hope that you use your in East Hampton use Michael as your RPC representative, and Portland, I hope you can draft someone to replace Erwin, and who was a great member. So
well, you'll be getting me, and I will find another person as
Mary,
well.
that'll be great.
Oh, we would love to have you. Mary, you're wonderful.
Aw, now I really want to do it.
But what we also love about Mary is that she has she's very much in a Portland booster, but she also has a regional perspective as well, having worked in other towns, and she's very capable. So that'd be great if you can join us on the RPC. And when you do join, you'll have your own RPC email address, Portland.
Oh, yay!
@gmail.com. So.
And Megan, Sam, while my name is up here, this is Mike Kowalczyk from the East Hampton RPC.
Yep.
I joined both commissions about 5 years ago, and we've been having talks getting ready for this plan almost my entire time on the RPC. So it's been a long time coming, and your comments will really help us put this plan together.
Thanks, Mike. It has been a while.
It's been quite an adventure.
Yes.
Quite a journey.
Jeremy can attest to that as well.
It goes back further than 5 years. I can say that.
Don't out us, Jeremy.
Sorry.
All right. Well, if that's it, I know you guys have been. Let's see, East Hampton. You've been 2 hours now, right? So it's time to finish and relax. So everybody, thank you, Jeremy. Thank you for helping us organize this, and Mike, thank you, and everybody, have a great evening. Thank you for all your comments, and we'll talk to you soon, I'm sure.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening.
Thank you.